Hello, GBA fans! I'm finally here. I'm one of your analysts, BulkyCottonCandy, a host for Around the Rhyhorn in Season 6, and I'm alongside with my partner. That's your cue.
Hello, one and all. I'm Spastic. How's it going, guys?
We're also here with our guest analyst, StayMusical.
What's going on, guys?
And our guest coach this week is the coach of the San Jose Sharpedos, Tom.
What's up, guys? How's it going? All you GBA type fans.
And this week our topic is going to be cores, and we're talking about like Apple cores and things like that, and like pits and all that, you know, stuff like
pitch
that.
cores.
Wow.
Oh yeah, yellow. River.
Okay. Anyways, let's just get right on into it. Our first question / main topic thing is, what core strategy do you prefer? Typings or synergetic pairs? Like, and what I mean by synergetic pairs is offensive or defensive, like, for example, Chansey and Sableye or something like that. Or do you prefer typings like Steel Fairy Dragon or Firewater Grass? Go ahead.
Huh.
I'll start.
Okay, Tom, go.
So, I guess with me, I think two mons that complement one another are better than the typing itself, because if you have a mon that could work off of potentially getting a U-turn off, or setting up rocks, or potentially stopping another wall, as compared to a group of mons that are just based on typing, like your Fairy, Steel, Dragon, you know, something like, I guess, Noivern or maybe even Flygon aren't going to be like the best type of dragons if they're not suited with the right other types, whether it's a kind of a lesser bulky Steel or Fairy type, for example.
Yeah, Trash
so I think if you
Trash Garchomp.
You're right. But if you have two mons that can complement each other with getting out with U-turn Volt Switch, or staying bulky, or shutting down other walls or setup sweepers, I think it's much more effective.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with Tom there that getting a synergetic pair is a lot better than having actual typings, especially in like the Draft League format, because you may look at your typing for mons and you'll say, okay, I'll use my grass type and I'll use my water type or whatever, but it may turn out that like a couple mons in the opponent's team could break through those two mons very easily, or those two typings. So I think it's really good to like pick two mons that you see work well together and like mold them around that.
I'm gonna go with the opposite argument. Specifically, Firewater Grass cores, I think, are really, really strong if you build it properly. Like, if you have an offensive fire type, like a bulky water type, and then a grass mon who can fill a utility role, or just fill in either way. Because like fire types have such great coverage, water types only have two weaknesses, and they're both covered by grass. And grass types usually have a lot of utility options, you know, except for mons like Superior, which whatever. Even then, you can still run a fast dual screener. But if you have like three really solid mons that work well and synergize together, then it's more than just a single pair of two mons that can just get run through easily. Because in my opinion, it's a little harder to run through three mons that synergize really well. But it does require a bit more planning and a bit more synergy.
Right. I kind of would go right in the middle and say basically I would pick mons that synergize well together, but I really like the Fire Water Grass core type of thing. So I may not have a Fire Water and a Grass type, but I may have a Fire and a Grass type, or a Water and a Grass type, or a Water and a Fire type, just to have that kind of feeling of having a somewhat of a base of a core, personally, but also having those mons that synergize well with each other. And so moving on, kind of like, just in one sentence or less, or in one sentence, just what role do you think is most important in a core? What role? And what I mean by role is like the role of a Pokemon like a Scarfer or Wall Breaker, Hazard Setter. What do you think is most important in either a team or a core to have?
Would you like me to start off again?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, go for
Let's
it.
just go in that order.
So I guess from my perspective, if you can have a taunting tank, something necessarily like maybe... Alright, before I sound like an idiot. Any of the pixies get taunt? I know Yuxi doesn't.
I think Mesprit does.
Okay.
I think his elf might.
Is not really...
His elf does.
Okay.
Wait, we're referring to the Lake Trio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was about to say, some of the base 100 pixies, I know like Celebi gets taunt. I think,
Alright, well, okay, fair enough. I guess I have my point. Alright. I guess for me, the most important, I guess for that type of role, would be a taunting tank. Not necessarily a wall per se, something like Cobalion, or I guess like even Mesprit. Not something that doesn't have direct recovery, but on the same token is fast enough to shut down another type of wall, or for that matter, can even shut down a setup sweeper. I know personally a problem that I've had is if you have a wall that doesn't necessarily have the means of taking out or phasing out another sweeper or another wall, you're kind of dead in the dirt. Like, you don't have any means to better yourself in that situation. So with that being said, if you have a mon that's fast enough, like Cobalion for example, it's fast, it has a fair amount of bulk, maybe not direct recovery, but can taunt, can get out, and it can kind of stop a mon in its tracks if it's trying to take advantage of you and that matchup.
Fun fact: Azelf is in fact the only Pokemon of the Lake Trio that does get taunt.
Really?
and before anybody rips me apart in the comments, I apologize. Celebi does not get taunt like I initially thought. So please spare me. Spare me.
Editing is
I'm
a
sorry.
thing. You don't need to put that in the video.
Also, fun fact: Umbreon
Meh.
gets taunt by Coliseum. Only.
Because
Right.
Coliseum is a thing.
Yeah. I guess I'll answer the question next. This might seem a little bit out there, but I think a really important, vital role to have would be, like, a defensive cleric. Because throughout the match, Mons get whittled down, and I just think it's a really important thing to have a Mon who could use, Heal Bell or Aromatherapy to, get status off of Mons. In addition, maybe, if possible, they could be a Wish Passer as well. Because there's a lot of really good Mons, let's say Mamoswine or something, that doesn't have that reliable recovery, like Recover or anything like that. So if you can have a Mon that could support the team by giving them health back or healing off their status, I think that's a really good vital role that should be within cores and teams in general.
I'm gonna go with a team that has a prankster Mon. A Mon with a prankster ability, because prankster Mons can fill a lot of different roles. Mainly, they can shut down a wall, set up walls, or they can really mess with offensive setup. If you have a prankster on your team that can taunt, that prevents a Dragon Dance, it prevents bulk ups, Calm Minds, and such. And one of my favorite prankster Mons is Tornadus Incarnate, because you can set up a prankster Tailwind and double your entire team speed for about 4 turns. So those can be really key in spreading around status. Thunderous Incarnate can do Thunder Wave. Sableye can spread around prankster Will-O-Wisps. So those can really be crucial in shutting down another team's momentum.
Going off of Musical's point, I really like clerics as well, but I also think a Volt Switcher or a U-Turner is very important, because it can give you the ability to not only get Mons in that you need in, but also give you the opportunity to almost double within a turn. If you want to double out, you can just Volt Switch out and double on the next turn, just to kind of play with your opponent a little bit. I don't know, I kind of like cheekier things like that, where you can just kind of mess with your opponent's head a little bit. I feel like that gives you a really good advantage, and so I really like having a solid Volt Switcher and U-Turner.
I definitely agree with that. When the introduction of that, I believe U-Turn was Generation 4 and then Volt Switch was Gen 5. That really kind of changed competitive battling, because there was more than just one way to switch out instead of just switching in the beginning of the turn. And that kind of goes along with, like, you could have, like, a fast Volt Switcher U-turner, like a Scarfer, to kind of get out of there in the beginning and just maybe, like, scout out. Or you could have, like, a slow U-turner or, like, even, like, a Baton Passer in that kind of sense. And just, like, mons that help you get that initiative to put you in the best position. I really agree with you there.
I really like Electros as a slow Volt Switcher. But that's just an example.
Yeah, Electros does it very well.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. I was like, I can't think of the word for, like, giving yourself the advantage. I couldn't think of the word. It's initiative. That's what I was looking for.
I was about to say, the word is Electros. That's what you're looking for.
Anyways, moving on to kind of our debatable topic, I guess you could say. And then we have one more thing I want to ask you guys at the end. Is which core strategy do you think is better? Which we kind of already talked about, but kind of want to have like a debate about it, like typings or the synergetical pairs. Which we kind of already talked about, but like, which one do you think works better in the League format when it's done correctly?
Are we going back to the synergetic pairs versus typings, or are we talking about like actual?
Yes, but we're talking about like which one do you think is better when it's done right?
Best example I can come up with is Dan's Mega Sableye Chansey core, I think, or even Mega Aggron and Sylveon. When you have two mons that maybe on their own wouldn't be the best examples taken from me. I think Mega Aggron was going to be as good as it was. But when you have two mons that don't necessarily match together on paper, and then in practicality, they work fantastically. You saw how successful Mega Sableye and Chansey was. You saw how successful Arcanine and Jellicent worked together, or even Sylveon, any fairy type for that matter, Mega Aggron. Put those together, group those together, and when you have a competent coach using those cores, you can't ask for anything better. I'm interested to see how Steve uses his core, because he does have the facets to make a decent wall core with, things like Heatran, Florges, Slowbro. But when you put it on paper, things like that work out very well if you can do so the correct way.
Yeah. Well, the reason Mega Aggron didn't really work for Dan is because it always missed Toxic. It was either his Mega Aggron or his Blastoise that always missed Toxic.
He still misses Toxics.
Toxic just doesn't like him. Anyways, go ahead. StayMusical.
I'll agree with Tom. Like, I definitely think that the Mega Sableye Chansey combo is like a really good one, and it's a hard one to break through. But then there's just other ones that kind of go along with that. When you take like a very defensive mon with like a especially bulky mon, like Chansey fits really well with a lot of mons, I can tell. Dan's current core that he hasn't actually really brought yet, which is Ferrothorn and Chansey. That one kind of works along the same dynamic. I also agree with Tom. I just agree with everything Tom says, actually.
Yes!
Like
someone agrees with me.
I agree, like Arcanine Jellicent, that's a really good one. And like David talked about earlier in our Bolts Predictions video, he talked about Slowbro Florges. And I think the kind of mons that work really well together are mons that fit well into that kind of core, but at the same time can support themselves. Because, for example, like going back to Arcanine or Jellicent, Arcanine has Morning Sun, Jellicent has Recover, and Slowbro Florges, same thing. They're good enough to support themselves and like sustain themselves throughout the match, while also being there for each other.
I'm gonna stick with my original argument of the synergetic cores instead of just the pairs. I mean, because looking at this season, really, I mean, we see Geo has a really strong Fire Water Grass core in Manaphy, Entei, and Chestnut. Like, Entei has really good natural bulk without really needing a whole lot of investment. Chestnut is really physically defensive. Yeah, it has a lot of weaknesses, but the fact that it strongly resists the Edgequake combo is key for his team. And Manaphy can either be like a special, like especially bulky, or just a special setup sweeper. But Tom, I really like your Fairy Steel Dragon core.
Thanks.
Like Sylveon, Sylveon is a specially defensive, just sponge. It sits there, takes all the hits, doesn't care. Cobalion, very good, physically defensive and fast. It can fill the role of a physical offensive presence. Whereas Noivern, just fast, boom burst, all the things. Those three work really well together because they can cover each other's weaknesses whilst taking out each other's problematic mons.
I'm still kind of like just on the fence. I really just think it comes down to the coach and how they use the mons. That's really what anything in League play comes down to. But I mean, I'm still kind of at the point where I'm just like, if it's two mons that are within those typings and work well together, it's gonna do well. Because as long as they're played correctly, it just works. There's nothing that like magically just like is just like, oh, this is just gonna magically work because miracles happen all the time. No, it's like how things are standard because they work. How like Choice Banded Entei is standard because it works. I just think as long as you can make it work, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, you've got a point.
I do
mean,
agree
stuff like Rocky Helmet, Fortress, it's a staple because it works. I mean, it's really strong defensively, and all that chip damage can really wear down like really offensive mons, like even Entei, for example.
And Will-O-Wisp, like Rotom and Sableye, or any like really like Ghost type, really, or Fire type, is standard because it works. Toxic is standard because it works.
Unless you're
Dan. Anyways,
I'm sorry, Dan. I'm sorry.
One last kind of interesting topic is basically, have you thought of any type of new combos? And I'm talking more typings. Have you thought of any more like typing cores that isn't Steel Fairy Dragon or Fire Water Grass that you think might be able to make a solid core?
I guess I'll go on this one. I was thinking about this. This one isn't necessarily a defensive core along the lines of like how Fire Water Grass sometimes is, but this is a pretty good offensive one, and it's not often talked about. It's a Psychic, Dark, and Fighting core. Because exactly. Offensively, those mons work really well together. And like looking at the draft, you can look at like Miguel's draft, and you can see that he has Gothitelle, which is a pretty strong Psychic type. Weavile, which of course we all know is amazing, and Primeape, which even though it is like a lower tier, it's still a really good mon. And those mons together, because of their typings and like what they can do, I feel like that's a really good offensive core to have that you can just punch holes with in the opponent's team.
One core I like is it's not exactly a perfect core, but since we're going away from Fire Water Grass and Fairy Steel Dragon, one core that I'm not sure if a lot of people think about is Rock, Fighting, and Flying, because they work as a triangle. Like Rock beats Flying, but is resisted by Fighting. Fighting beats Rock, etc.
Right. It's the same thing as Fire Water Grass. It works
yeah,
in that
except
triangle.
they don't cover each other's weaknesses as well. I mean, Rock does beat Ice, which helps cover Flying, but it's another one of those trios that can work well together. It's an unorthodox core.
Okay, yeah, definitely technical issues.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Okay, you kind of cut out.
crap.
So I was saying, like, yeah,
Again.
it works like Fire, Water, Grass in that triangle.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. It's different, but they synergize well. Not as well as Fire, Water, Grass and Fairy Steel Dragon, but they can cover each other's weaknesses. They work well offensively together. So it's a core that you can work with.
I really like that core, especially for like the flying aspect of it, because a lot of people don't realize how powerful like flying typing is. Like you can look at like Staraptor or like Talonflame. It's a really good type to just like have, and when you put it into a core, it works even better. So I definitely like that, Spastic.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like when you said no one really thinks about strong fighting types, I was just gonna say Staraptor.
Yeah.
That reckless brave bird.
Close combat.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's something I hadn't really thought about is like trying to take other typings that aren't Fire, Water, Grass, Steel, Fairy, Dragon, and kind of make somewhat of a core out of it. But I was thinking earlier about like Psychic and Dark, and then throwing in like a fighting type or a ghost type as they kind of counter each other and work in that type of triangle. I was trying to think along those lines. I didn't really build anything like specific though, but I was kind of thinking along like building a triangle of typings that work together. What about you, Tom?
I was actually gonna build off of that. What about Psychic, Dark, Poison? So if you match up Mandibuzz, Bronzong, and Mungus, they pretty much cover each other's weaknesses relatively well. I mean, Fire is still kind of gonna roast all three of them, but if you kind of work those
Fire's
three
gonna
out.
roast Mandibuzz because it's a freaking turkey.
Haha, it's a joke. It's a good joke. I like that.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
But I think those will work together just based on their bulk and the capability of, like, I guess, working with one another.
Anyways,
Huzzah.
that's all we have for today. So if you guys enjoyed these Around the Rhyhorn, please hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to the GBA channel already, please do so. We have all types of updates coming out, and all the links are in the description below. And we'll see you guys next week on Around the Rhyhorn. Leave your comments, leave your ideas down in the comment section below, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Later.
See ya.
Later.